Your English teachers hide a humiliating secret. Our refined language is a junkyard of historical accidents, medieval ignorance, and sheer laziness. Forget sophisticated roots. We built our everyday vocabulary on dead mice, exploding bikinis, angry goblins, and mashed testicles. You won't ever look at your daily conversations the same way. Language is an embarrassing joke. 1. The global wireless tech standard honors a Viking king with a dead, blue-black rotting tooth. A billion-dollar modern connectivity empire pays daily tribute to medieval dental gangrene. They didn't rely on swords, shields, or a premium subscription to a virtual private network. Engineers sit in sterile glass boardrooms, stamping 1,000-year-old necrotic infection onto every smartphone, tablet, and headset on planet Earth. Tech executives stand on a bright stage, unveiling their next revolutionary communication microchip named after your grandfather's infected, festering toe. They eagerly market terrible oral hygiene as premium lifestyle innovation. You summon a diseased mouth. Who named your wireless gadgets? Rebellious French workers hurled wooden shoes into factory gears to stop the machines. 2. The actual historical truth hides behind a much duller reality, but society collectively adopted this violent fable because it sounded badass. Laborers turned their own dirty footwear into the ultimate instrument of industrial rebellion. A disgruntled modern employee initiates a corporate strike by hurling a pair of neon rubber Crocs directly into a company's main server rack. Those soft plastic clogs smash through motherboards, snap vital cables, and plunge the whole financial district into darkness. We twisted an old myth about footwear into the definitive term for intentional destruction. It's brilliant public relations. Sabotage is fashion. 3. Picture signing a literal death pledge just to own a suburban house. Derived from Old French, the word beautifully combines the concepts of the dead and a binding pledge. The global banking system doesn't even bother hiding their sinister intentions anymore. Financial executives openly declare that this crushing debt will stalk your physical body straight down into your cold, dark grave. A ruthless mafia boss extracts a permanent blood oath from a helpless civilian. They lightly sugarcoat the lifelong extortion, expertly disguising the Grim Reaper's inescapable contract as a boring 40-page document signed in a bright, fluorescent-lit bank lobby, while a polite teller hands you a complimentary pen. You sign away your life for a granite kitchen island. They own your soul. 4. Ancient Romans thought flexing biceps looked like little mice scurrying under the skin. The ultimate modern symbol of physical intimidation and dominant masculine strength boils down to a terrifying rodent hallucination. Hardened Roman warriors flexed their sweaty arms before battle and visualized a frightened family of fast vermin permanently trapped inside their own swelling flesh. A dedicated gym bro cultivates a thriving, protein shake-fueled rat infestation deep inside his own vascular body instead of actual strength. He checks the locker room mirror, desperately hoping his internal colony of squeaking vermin grew larger after lifting heavy iron plates. He chases maximum hypertrophy just to breed bigger imaginary rodents. Do your mice need more protein? The most generic noun in the dictionary secretly conceals a treasonous insult. 5. The term derives straight from the burned, mocked effigies of a domestic terrorist, Guy Fawkes. Think about that for a second. A radical extremist who desperately tried to blow up the entire parliament with hidden gunpowder somehow became the default pronoun for every single male walking the earth today. A modern society casually calls every random dude on the street an Osama. People cheerfully yell this explosive name across crowded coffee shops, high school hallways, and corporate boardrooms until society erases the horrific, violent origins of the moniker. We casually greet our coworkers using the exact title of a famous religious fanatic. You celebrate treason. 6. The absolute pinnacle of formal wear takes its name directly from Tuxedo Park. A rich country club heir threw a petulant fashion tantrum and stubbornly refused to wear traditional evening tails. James Bond's iconic, sophisticated aesthetic stems straight from a spoiled, aristocratic brat taking shears to his own expensive coat. A tech billionaire struts onto the red carpet at the Oscars wearing a pristine, bright red Gucci tracksuit. High society gasps, murmurs among themselves, and then inexplicably accepts this ridiculous sportswear as the new global standard for elite evening elegance. We elevated a historic wardrobe malfunction into the ultimate mandatory dress code for fancy weddings, corporate galas, and diplomatic events. Fashion is fake. 7. Life's deadliest threats essentially boil down to a random board game mechanic. The word for danger originates from an Arabic dice game brought over to Europe by returning crusaders. Our battered ancestors looked at the unpredictable, brutal violence of medieval existence and decided it functioned exactly like tossing numbered cubes onto a sticky tavern table. A terrified driver treats their comprehensive auto insurance policy or a devastating multi-car crash like a literal spin at a flashy Vegas roulette wheel. They gamble their actual daily survival on the arbitrary bounce of painted gambling dice. You navigate treacherous storms, global pandemics, and collapsing buildings as if you just landed on the worst possible Monopoly square. Roll the dice. 8. The Aztec word literally and directly translates to a human testicle. Modern health nuts enthusiastically drain their savings accounts for a green fruit that ancient people specifically named after male genitalia. The indigenous tribes took one look at how these bumpy, textured things hung in heavy pairs from the tree branches and stated the obvious biological resemblance. A trendy hipster eagerly smears a thick layer of mashed gonads across a premium slice of toasted sourdough bread. They photograph this reproductive organ, apply an expensive vintage filter, and upload their fleshy brunch to social media for instant lifestyle validation. You pay $15 for tree crotch at a cafe. Enjoying your expensive mashed testicles? 9. You don't have bad dreams. You endure physical assault from an invisible bedroom demon. Originally, a mare functioned as a terrifying female goblin believed to sit directly on the chests of vulnerable sleepers. I'm not making this up. The terrified victims woke up paralyzed in the dark, genuinely convinced a foul supernatural monster squatted on their lungs to maliciously steal their breath. A creepy, heavy roommate repeatedly breaks into your locked apartment at 3 in the morning just to sit forcefully on your fragile ribcage while you sleep. They crush your chest until you wake up screaming in a cold, shivering sweat. It makes modern anxiety dreams about failing a college math test look weak and pathetic. Demons crush your ribs. 10. The sweet red American staple started its miserable life without a single tomato. It derives directly from a pungent, salty Chinese fermented fish sauce. The original murky liquid sloshed around in wooden vats, looking exactly like dark, rotting seafood juice that would make any modern fast food consumer violently vomit right there in the drive-thru lane. A hungry driver confidently dips their perfectly salted, golden French fries into a liquefied, rotting aquarium. They slurp up the fermented, sun-baked guts of dead aquatic life and stubbornly call it a delicious dinner condiment. The world's most famous burger topping is historically just spoiled ocean garbage hidden inside a plastic bottle. Want fermented fish on those fries? Society bullied one of history's greatest minds so ruthlessly that his name means brain-dead idiot. 11. John Duns Scotus was a brilliant 13th century philosopher whose groundbreaking ideas proved way too complex for regular peasants to grasp. The ignorant masses retaliated against his unmatched genius by mocking his dedicated, studious followers. High school bullies relentlessly torment Albert Einstein, shoving him into rusty metal lockers until the proud name Einstein officially becomes the permanent dictionary definition for a drooling moron. They punish exceptional intelligence with an eternal linguistic curse. We took a brilliant scholar and slapped a pointy paper hat on his historical legacy forever. Intelligence gets punished. Intelligence gets 12. Envision delivering a brutal intellectual beatdown while smiling. Back in the 14th century, this specific word operated as a highbrow Latin insult meaning ignorant or stupid. Educated people used it to systematically destroy their arrogant rivals during tense aristocratic debates. A vicious public relations agency executes the greatest linguistic rebranding campaign ever conceived by man. They take a devastating, reputation-ruining verbal takedown and smoothly transform it into the tepid, boring compliment you give your annoying aunt when she knits you an ugly holiday sweater. We turned a sharp dagger into a plastic butter knife used for fake politeness. The dictionary laughs at your fake manners. You speak disguised insults. 13. One of the most terrifying weapons of modern warfare is named after mundane plumbing. During the First World War, British forces disguised their thickly armored killing machines as simple water carriers to fool enemy spies. The deception worked flawlessly, but the painfully mundane disguise stuck permanently to the metal beast. The modern military spends decades building a top-secret, world-ending nuclear submarine covered in lethal warheads and officially names it the Brita filter. Hardened soldiers ride into apocalyptic combat, screaming terrifying battle cries from inside a giant metal bucket. A machine designed to crush trenches and vaporize concrete bunkers sounds like a backyard rain barrel. Warfare is just aggressive plumbing. 14. A tiny flying pet takes its name from a pack of large barking hounds. The famous yellow bird derives its identity from the Canary Islands, a geographical location originally named after the Latin word for wild dogs. Through a broken folding chain of bizarre transitive logic, humanity looked at a fragile singing fowl and scientifically classified it as a ferocious canine. A confused modern chef opens a high-end restaurant and stubbornly decides to name a delicate, leafy vegan salad after a bloody, roaring industrial slaughterhouse. The entire naming convention breaks down under the heavy weight of its own historical stupidity. You feed premium seeds to a tiny yellow puppy with wings. Is your delicate pet bird actually a dog? The concept of unimportance comes from ancient Romans loitering at a crosswalk. 15. It stems from the trivium, a Latin term for a physical place where three dirt roads met. Bored, unemployed citizens gathered at these dusty intersections exclusively to exchange mindless trash talk and useless local rumors. A dedicated historian judges our entire modern society based exclusively on mindless social media threads yelled across a busy, traffic-choked pedestrian intersection. They compile endless screaming matches about cheap celebrity gossip and arrogantly log them as significant cultural archives. The fundamental definition of meaninglessness is literally just street corner babble from a dead empire. Your deep thoughts are street gossip. 16. Humanity collectively failed basic spelling and refused to ever correct it. We named this prominent facial hair after General Burnside, a famous military man with a very distinct look. Then society inexplicably agreed to just flip his surname backwards without holding a single vote or asking for his personal permission. The entire planet experiences a catastrophic glitch in the simulation, where every single person wakes up, decides that up is now down, and never once issues a formal apology to the offended general. They selfishly warp his proud historical legacy into an illiterate, backwards anagram. Millions of stylish men walk around wearing a permanent typographical error glued to their jawlines every morning. You wear a typo. Wear 17. Doctors confidently blamed swamp fumes instead of the actual mosquitoes. The Italian term simply means bad air. Humanity erected a permanent, unchangeable linguistic monument to their own devastating stupidity by naming a deadly blood-borne disease after a completely incorrect medical diagnosis. A terrible driver crashes their speeding sports car headfirst into a large oak tree and confidently blames the fiery wreckage on a bad digital music playlist playing on the radio. They blatantly ignore the steering wheel and blame the invisible sound waves for their crushed front bumper. We let primitive, fearful guesswork dictate the scientific terminology for a microscopic parasite that kills millions of people. Science bows to superstition. 18. A French designer equated swimsuit sex appeal to the vaporization of a tropical island. He named the revealing two-piece garment after the Bikini Atoll immediately following 23 highly destructive atomic bomb tests. This absolute maniac looked at a blinding mushroom cloud that permanently eradicated ecosystems and decided it perfectly matched women's summer beachwear. A ruthless fast fashion brand launches a cute floral summer sundress and casually names it the Chernobyl. They leverage the horrifying, deadly power of nuclear fallout to sell cheap synthetic fabrics to oblivious tourists enjoying a sunny vacation. The most iconic piece of modern swimwear shares its title with radioactive ash. Wearing a weapon of mass destruction? 19. The single most universally understood word on planet Earth is an accidental typo. It exploded from an 1830s Boston fad where writers intentionally misspelled all correct as all correct. This cheap throwaway abbreviation should have died in a week, but instead it infected every spoken dialect on the globe. Humanity peaked linguistically by taking a deeply unfunny, outdated boomer meme from the internet and forcing it to become the official binding language of the United Nations Assembly. We enthusiastically dictate vital international treaties, declare wars, and text our friends using a bad grammatical joke. The foundation of global human communication is basically an old newspaper shitpost that refused to die. Language is a meme. 20. A crucial element powering modern electronics is named after magical underground fairies. Angry miners blamed mythical German goblins called kobolds whenever they dug up bad, toxic ore. These dirty medieval laborers threw violent tantrums deep in the earth, loudly cursing invisible gremlins for their extremely poor mining yields. A slick modern finance bro screams at invisible magical creatures in his penthouse because his aggressive cryptocurrency portfolio crashed overnight. He blames fantasy monsters instead of his own terrible investment choices, and Wall Street officially adopts the monster's name for a new stock index. Your sleek smartphone battery relies on a metal named by superstitious men afraid of the dark. Goblins run your tech. 21. Your serious office attire is a permanent homage to a theatrical buffoon. We shortened the word from pantaloons, a strange garment named directly after Pantalone, a pathetic, constantly humiliated clown featured in Italian comedy theater. Seriously, every single time you dress up, you unconsciously honor a fictional man whose sole purpose was getting mocked by laughing audiences. An ambitious executive confidently walks into a ruthless Wall Street job interview wearing full squeaky-nosed clown makeup. They firmly shake hands and discuss corporate synergy while spiritually dressed as a circus act meant to generate cheap laughs. You iron your tailored trousers just to look like a historic joke. Business casual is clown cosplay. 22. Roman propaganda was so effective it destroyed a tribe's reputation for 1,500 years. The Vandals sacked Rome, but they weren't actually that bad compared to everyone else. Salty Roman writers launched a devastating organized smear campaign, churning out angry texts that permanently linked the tribe's name to mindless destruction. A misunderstood teenager gets canceled on social media so ruthlessly that their actual family surname officially becomes the dictionary definition of a garbage human for the next millennium. The ruthless algorithmic hate mob permanently rewrites their biological legacy into a daily slur. Sorest losers in history dictated the language of property damage. Did ancient propaganda ruin your name? 23. A drink associated with terrible weekend decisions started as holy medicine. The word is a chopped, anglicized version of a Gaelic phrase, translating exactly to water of life. Dedicated praying monks crafted this burning alcohol with the utmost reverence, genuinely believing they had bottled the literal fountain of youth in a fragile glass jar to save lives. A respected medical doctor legitimately prescribes 4 fiery tequila shots as a valid, premium form of modern health insurance. They scribble down a prescription for liver poison and confidently tell the sick patient it will quickly cure their persistent cough. We consume a sacred elixir just to pass out on a sticky tavern floor at 2 in the morning. Liquor is fake medicine. Humans reject boring linguistic facts for bloody lies involving visceral gore and fire. 24. Society actively ignores the real Caribbean origin barbacoa. Instead, people fiercely defend a much cooler, entirely fake French myth, claiming the word means roasting an animal from beard to tail over an open, blazing flame. A stubborn science teacher ignores real peer-reviewed biology just because the explosive Michael Bay movie version looks way cooler on a massive cinema screen. They proudly throw away the dry textbook and passionately teach the confused students a blockbuster Hollywood script full of roaring explosions. We crave a dramatic, savage origin story for grilling cheap hot dogs in the backyard. Truth loses to cinema. 25. 10% of the population was deemed inherently wicked because of their dominant hand. The word is simply the Latin translation for left, twisted into meaning a dark, brooding evil due to ancient superstitions against left-handed people. The ignorant majority looked at someone writing differently and immediately assumed they communed with the devil. A paranoid judge treats a common pair of left-handed scissors like a dangerous, cursed weapon forged deep within the fires of Satan's personal underground workshop. They blindly lock up innocent civilians just because they prefer holding a soup spoon on the wrong side of the dinner plate. Biological variance became a religious crime punishable by social exile. Lefties are demons. 26. The world's most popular lunch item exists solely because of a crippling gambling addiction. The Earl of Sandwich stubbornly refused to step away from the chaotic card table. He demanded his tired servants shove sliced meat between pieces of bread so he could eat one-handed without ever interrupting his reckless, high-stakes betting streak. A pale, unwashed gamer invents a groundbreaking liquid meal replacement just because he refuses to pause his 24-hour Battle Royale marathon to chew actual food. He sacrifices basic human dignity for an uninterrupted stream of cheap dopamine hits. Every busy corner deli on Earth pays tribute to an aristocrat who couldn't stop throwing his family money away. Is your lunch just gambling fuel? 27. Imagine paying $50 a month to endure a 19th century penal colony torture. The original machine was a giant, heavy rotating device used as cruel and unusual punishment for starving prisoners in Victorian England. Sadistic guards forced exhausted inmates to march endlessly on spinning wooden gears just to systematically crush their rebellious spirits. A modern fitness enthusiast eagerly swipes their platinum credit card to voluntarily subject themselves to the exact same grueling hard labor found in a freezing Victorian gulag. They buy expensive running shoes to flawlessly recreate the harrowing daily experience of a condemned convict. You sweat on a punishment wheel for personal growth. Workouts are jail. The creators of English gave up trying to be creative and just made a noise. 28. There is no hidden historical depth or complex Latin root to this word at all. They didn't rely on Greek mythology, ancient battles, or poetry. It is a lazy onomatopoeic creation, born simply because the sound itself mimics the quiet, breathy action it describes. They exhaled loudly into the air and boldly wrote it down as official vocabulary. An exhausted pet owner reaches the absolute pinnacle of linguistic laziness, naming their new dog Woof Woof because their burnt-out brain suddenly ceased working after a long shift. They abandon all intellectual effort and let a random bodily function do the difficult naming for them. The dictionary writers just quit. 29. Over centuries, humans chewed up a holy blessing into a meaningless grunt. The word is a slurred, eroded, exceptionally lazy contraction of the pious and formal parting phrase, "God be with ye." People were in such a frantic, selfish hurry to leave a conversation that they violently compressed a divine prayer into a quick, flat dismissal. A reckless teenager violently downgrades our entire language, turning a beautiful, emotional Shakespearean sonnet into a dry text message that just says the single letter K. They carelessly strip away all the sacred religious reverence just to save 2 seconds of their precious time. We transformed a genuine wish for holy protection into a cold corporate sign-off. Are you too lazy to bless? Are you too lazy to... 30. The peak of sophisticated theatrical art is named after an irritating farm animal. The Greek word tragodia literally translates directly to goat song, violently stripping the prestigious dramatic genre of all its emotional dignity. The ancient playwrights inexplicably linked humanity's deepest cinematic sorrows to the annoying, high-pitched bleating of horned livestock. A pretentious film academy destroys the grand, majestic illusion of high art, awarding a brilliant actor a shiny golden trophy for successfully sounding like a bleating sheep. They dress up in expensive suits to passionately celebrate a pathetic noise you hear in a dirty, mud-soaked barnyard. Shakespearean sorrow equals a screaming farm animal. Theater is a zoo. Theater is a... 31. The ultimate word for a diabolical antagonist is just unapologetic classism. It evolved from the term villainous, which basically meant a poor farmhand working the soil. Rich, pampered nobles inherently assumed that filthy peasants were naturally evil, so they turned the boring job title of a broke laborer into the universal definition of a mastermind criminal. An arrogant billionaire embodies peak aristocratic snobbery, inherently assuming anyone who rides the sticky public bus is a scheming serial killer plotting their violent demise. They use their extreme wealth to criminalize everyday poverty and cement their snobbish financial bias into the dictionary forever. Being broke was historically a crime. Poverty equals evil. Humans historically refuse to take accountability for their own epic failures. 32. Derived from the Italian for ill-starred, this word rests on the absurd belief that bad luck was caused by misaligned planets. Instead of admitting they built a terrible bridge, people chose to blame giant celestial bodies spinning millions of miles away in the dark void. A modern astrology fanatic exhibits the original toxic trait, desperately justifying burning down a whole apartment building because Mercury happens to be in retrograde. They swiftly dodge personal responsibility by pointing a trembling finger at the glowing night sky to excuse their own destructive incompetence. You blame stars for your bad choices. Are the planets ruining your life? Planets? Stop for a second. Let's break the illusion. We just ripped through 32 brain-melting examples of how fundamentally broken our daily vocabulary truly is. You barely survived Aztec testicles, angry German mind goblins, and Viking dead teeth. It genuinely feels like we reached the dark bottom of this chaotic linguistic barrel. An exhausted announcer drops the heavy paper script, steps away from the shiny studio microphone, and stares blankly at the soundproof wall. They didn't rely on logic, basic grammar, or a coherent thought process to build this language. The sheer volume of historic stupidity we just covered is honestly suffocating. You think you've seen the bottom of the linguistic barrel? Wait until you see what controls your bank account. 33. The United States dollar is just a mangled, shortened mispronunciation of a 16th century Czech silver coin. The entire global economy runs on a chewed-up linguistic game of telephone. English isn't polished. It's a junkyard of accidents, insults, and bizarre backstories masking as intellect. Drop your guess in the comments. Which brain-meltingly stupid modern slang, like skibidi, will be taken seriously by politicians in the year 2400? I'll pin the most hilariously accurate prediction.